Sophia and Daniel Reynolds appeared to have the perfect life, luxury penthouse, successful careers, and an enviable social circle. But one morning, everything shattered when Sophia was found pulverized in their condo, her foot severed and missing, and the world they had built began to unravel in the most horrifying way. The morning had started like any other in the upscale high-rise condominium in the heart of the city. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, reflecting off polished marble floors and expensive decor, creating an illusion of calm and luxury. But inside one of the penthouse apartments, the illusion shattered in the most horrifying way. Police had been called to a scene that left even the most seasoned officers shaken. A woman, young and seemingly full of life, had been found dead under circumstances that were both brutal and baffling. Her body had been pulverized, a term investigators used with grim precision, and one of her feet was missing. The horror of the scene was amplified by the fact that there were no signs of forced entry. The door had been locked from the inside, and nothing appeared stolen. This raised an immediate question in everyone's mind. How could something so violent occur in a place considered safe and secure? Neighbors whispered anxiously as uniformed officers cordoned off the area. The quiet, normally serene building now hummed with tension and speculation. Residents who had waved politely to the woman in the elevator, who had smiled from the lobby on sunny mornings, found themselves grappling with the unimaginable. The police moved quickly, methodically photographing every detail, begging evidence, and examining the apartment. The living room, with its plush furniture and carefully arranged art pieces, offered no clues. The bedroom, where so many intimate moments had unfolded, was now a stark scene of tragedy. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, trying to make sense of a situation that defied logic. Every object, every trace of material, every fingerprint and fiber could be a vital piece of the puzzle. But the mystery seemed to deepen with each passing hour. The missing foot introduced a chilling and perplexing element. Investigators knew that such an injury was rarely accidental. It suggested a level of planning, a deliberate act meant to shock and confuse anyone who might uncover the crime. The way the body had been handled indicated not just violence, but also knowledge of how to obscure evidence, a detail that immediately shifted the investigation into a more complex realm. Experts began considering scenarios that were almost cinematic in their cruelty, but they had to stay grounded in facts. The challenge was to unravel the truth without falling into assumptions or sensationalism, even as the gruesomeness of the scene made the story nearly impossible to ignore. Outside, the media began to gather, cameras flashing, reporters murmuring about a high-profile crime in one of the city's most prestigious buildings. Inside the condo, detectives worked silently, their faces tense, fully aware that the world would be watching and that every detail mattered. Each new piece of evidence added layers to the mystery, hinting at a story far deeper than the immediate scene suggested. As the day wore on, the initial shock began to give way to careful analysis, and the building that had once been a symbol of wealth and security became a haunting reminder that appearances could be dangerously deceiving. The city, oblivious in its bustling streets, had suddenly become the backdrop for a crime that would challenge every assumption about safety, privacy, and the darkness that could exist behind closed doors. As the investigation progressed, detectives began piecing together the life of the woman whose death had shaken the city. On the surface, she seemed to have everything: a successful career, a loving husband, and a life of luxury in a penthouse that overlooked the skyline. Social media painted a picture of perfection, carefully curated images of vacations, dinners, and laughter with friends. Yet, as investigators dug deeper, they discovered that what was visible to the world was only a fraction of her reality. Behind closed doors, her life had been far more complicated, layered with secrets that only a few knew and perhaps only she understood fully. Her professional life was impressive but demanding. She had risen quickly in her career, earning both respect and envy in equal measure. Colleagues described her as meticulous and driven, someone who rarely left work unfinished and who had a sharp eye for detail. Yet, there were signs of a dual existence, one that didn't appear on LinkedIn or in press releases. Travel records revealed frequent trips abroad, some under the guise of business, others that had no official explanation. Phone records and digital forensics showed encrypted messaging apps, private contacts, and communications that hinted at personal dealings outside her professional life. Investigators realized they were peeling back layers of a life that had been meticulously curated and guarded, a life where appearances masked something much darker and more intricate. Even those closest to her admitted they hadn't known the full picture. Friends spoke of a woman who was kind and attentive, yet private, careful about what she shared. She maintained boundaries in her social circles that now seemed almost deliberate, as if protecting herself from scrutiny. The detectives noticed patterns that suggested she had been cautious for a reason. Subtle hints in her calendar, occasional unexplained absences, and sudden changes in routine all pointed towards someone who had been living a life within a life, managing multiple identities without drawing attention. Financial records began to reveal transactions that raised eyebrows. Large sums were being transferred to accounts that had no apparent connection to her immediate life. Investigators couldn't yet determine if these were legitimate business dealings or part of a more secretive and potentially dangerous arrangement. The mystery deepened as they explored her contacts and acquaintances. There were people she met in far-flung cities, names that appeared briefly in her communications and then vanished without explanation. Each discovery suggested that she had been involved with networks of individuals whose motives and intentions were far